Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook live stream. And today we will be reviewing some newly released tech from a cyberpunk perspective, and that tech is the new Tesla robots. And I think I might take this. I'm actually just testing this out, and also it'll be a fun little intro. But I'm not quite that cyberpunk. Anyway. Tesla robots. So in case you didn't hear about it, just this last week and yesterday, I believe, the Tesla robots, Elon Musk's brand new I servant. It's I robot. It was just released. It is well, you can kind of see what it is here. There's a little video. I don't want to play the video just in case, but let me see if I can find the information on that. Oh, there's two things that happened. There was the robo taxi, and then there's also that's a robot servant. Yeah, Tesla's Optimus humanoid robot to assist with household chores, and then there was the robo taxi. Now, obviously, when let me just read a little bit of this before I go double back. Elon Musk unveils Tesla Optimus humanoid robot to assist with household chores. Elon Musk estimated that the Optimus humanoid robots will cost between $20,000 and $30,000. Okay, keep those numbers in mind. Is there any other details? The Optimus bot makes a scene at the Robotaxi event. These Optimus bot, okay, it's called the Optimus robot. Optimus robots walked out into the crowd after the new Robovan was revealed. Newswriter fond of electric vehicle lifestyle and things that plug in via USB. A bunch of Tesla humanoid Optimus robots walked out alongside the reveal of Tesla's new Robovan at tonight's Cybercab event. The robot is also seen in a video doing daily human tasks while bringing in a package from the porch and watering your plants. Optimus will walk amongst you, Tesla CEO Elon Musk said. You will be able to walk right up to them, and they will serve drinks. Musk explains it will basically do anything and mentions examples like walking your dog, babysitting your kids, mowing your lawn. He said it will cost $20,000 to $30,000 long term. I think this will be the biggest product ever of any kind. After the presentation, live stream footage showed people interacting with Optimus robots at tables and in crowds. Still, the robots weren't doing much other than waving in the style of Astrobot. There was a table of drinks, but the Optimus bot was not seen doing more than holding a cup of ice. However, one bot could hand over small gift bags at another table and play rock, paper, scissors with guests, and there was an enclosed gazebo with a bunch of dancing robots inside. Musk revealed a lighter and faster Gen 2 bot last year in an April earnings call. He said Optimus will start performing useful tasks by the end of this year and could be sold externally by the end of next year. The Tesla bot was not a serious product when Musk first revealed the project in 2021 when a man in a robot suit took the stage to perform a silly dance. In 2022, the company showed off a crude prototype that gingerly walked on stage. Anyways, Musk has loftily promised that Optimus will be a fundamental transformation for civilization, and he made bigger ones for the investors that it'll bring 2 orders of magnitude of potential improvement of economic output, and that it can be made in very high volume, ultimately millions of units. Musk said it would cost around $20,000 and all for a future where there is no poverty. And of course it's a cybercab. So now, like, okay, that's like the public, like that's what he is saying about his robots. Just check my chat here. So, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to sell the bots, obviously. I am not on the payroll of Elon Musk. I am not and never have been a member of the neo-feudal, techno-feudal capitalist party. So, um, this is not just a stump speech for Tesla robots. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what they're saying. Now, number one is that there is no actual product that actually exists yet that is doing what it is claimed it is supposed to do, right? Number one, and so let's look at the hype, because obviously this is Elon Musk. What do we know about Elon Musk? Let's just look at his track record, right? He said that COVID would be cured by April 20. There would be near zero COVID in April of 2020. He was absolutely catastrophically wrong on that. He has promised. He promised. He promised ventilators, like 2 ventilators for California to deal with, in the beginning of the pandemic, and he delivered like 2 malfunctioning non-ventilators. I think it was CPAP machines. They were not, and they were both broken. Didn't do that. He talks about fixing the Flint water crisis. Did nothing for that. He said that on the cosmology, astronomy, and space science front. I mean, I do a lot of space science myself as a science STEM teacher, historically and presently, and also as a science fiction writer. On the science fiction front, the space science front, he claimed that the human race has to build a multiplanetary civilization because the sun is going to expand many times its size in 500 million years. He's completely off by a factor of 10. And that that's one thing for just some random person to just be just somebody say but if you accidentally forgot or didn't know the speed of light, one could be forgetting 186,000 miles per second. I mean, if you got it it's 1,800,000 miles per second, or if you said it's 1 billion miles per second, or if you forgot that gravity accelerates objects towards the center of the Earth at 9.8 meters per second every second. If you said it was 90 meters per second, just as some random layperson, that's one thing. But Elon is claiming to be some kind of genius, right? And some kind of just mastermind, and also specifically he understands cosmic trajectories and space colonization, rocketry. He's claimed that he did all the physics and all the engineering, all the hardest engineering himself on his SpaceX rockets, right? He makes all of these claims, and Elon is also the poster boy of the American and Western system, the rules-based order, the capitalist system, the technological future that can be arrived at by investing in what's called the Western liberal rules-based order capitalist world, right? He is the poster child of that, the future in particular of it, right? And so that's why he's always, no matter how many times he fails, it's also part of why he's always at the forefront. No matter how many times he's wrong, he's always pushed to the forefront, and he's always propped up. Now they're getting kind of tired of propping him up. It's kind of like they're getting tired of propping up ISRAEL in the West, but they have to, for similar reasons, right? Even as bad as they are failures and horrible, they have to keep being propped up because there so much has already been invested. There's so much of the reputation, so much legacy, so much propaganda has been tied to and pushed into, and now they have money, they have wealth, they have investments that are locked into Tesla cars, SpaceX, and the U.S. government's space and aeronautics is all wrapped together, right? So you can't, and the electric vehicles, new energy, renewable energy, space exploration, and now the robotics is all wrapped up. You've kind of already tied it up into a bow. Like, you really could have put. I mean, obviously, it's not just Elon. There's many people that are profiting from this, but he is. He is. They can't. You can't take Elon easily out of the Western capitalist imperialist structure. You can't just like dislocate him in the same way you can't just take the United States unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East. We know which one we're talking about, right? The one that Biden is trying to pretend like he isn't supporting their war crimes, right? But you can't just oh well, I mean, this, you can't take Netanyahu, and you can't take that settler colony there, right, doing heinous atrocities, and you can't, well, that one's not doing too good. Let's make another one. You can't just make another one. You have to, they're bound by what they have created. They're bound by the spoiled child, murderous spoiled child, extremely damaging spoiled child, even damaging to themselves, that they have created. So Elon and ISRAEL are very similar, right? They're kind of they're very incompetent. It's very, very damaging. They're given so much free money, right? Because Elon basically takes the West prints money from the central banking system. They dump that money straight into the pockets of these mega corporations and private entities and Elon himself, and then he buys back stock, right, giving himself free money for doing nothing, right, under a neo-feudal, techno-feudal system. And so that allows him to be infinitely incompetent. Like, Elon can claim anything, right? Elon can claim that, like, tomorrow, he can just say, like, in 3 months, Tesla will be outselling the biggest Chinese car company. He can just say that right now, and it doesn't matter that if it doesn't come true, which he's not, by the way. The BYD is a Chinese company that's ahead of Tesla, right? But he could just say that, and people will stop to clap for him. He'll still get free money, because in the same way that ISRAEL, right, can kill, like, it can unalive 300 children today. It can, like, catastrophically fail to do any kind of invasion into Lebanon, and tomorrow it will get another $8 billion, right? So that's because they're like Siamese twins with the United States and the collective West, which they're just manifestations of it, really. Like, they're two different faces of the same ball of vampires. The mountain of Weyland-Yutani, just congealed colonial malice and greed. So what is that? So I hope that debunks anybody's claims that I'm trying to sell Tesla and that I'm a professional stock pumper for Elon Musk. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But yeah, but when it comes to the robots, so one thing is, like, why is this happening now in particular, right? And what exactly is going on with this? There was a recent article. Let me see if I lost that. Yeah. Tesla stock sheds $70 billion. So this is one reason why, right? Because it's to get his stock back up. Or I'm not sure if this was the same. I think it was the same day that this, like, catastrophic collapse of Tesla stock was happening. Or just not. Well, it's a huge collapse. It's a big drop in the stock. Shares of Tesla slid 8.8% to $217. So it's not like it was cut in half, but it is like a big drop. 217 So it lost 68 billion in market capitalization, more than the equivalent of the total market's value of each of its American auto rivals, Ford and General Motors. The dive came after Tesla showed off its cybercar. So one thing to note is that actually Tesla stock valuation, right, is Tesla has been selling less than 1% of the auto market. Tesla was like if you add up the value of, if you add up the stock value of Toyota, GM, Chrysler, Ford, all these other auto companies, I think like a few years ago, Tesla's like the total money that was in the stock market, right? So the stock market value, right? That's not necessarily like what is the total value of all the cars being produced. Like if each car is worth, whatever, 30, 50, $100,000, how many cars are being created, produced by the factories, right? Put together and then sold, right? But if you actually take the total number of cars that are being created and sold, almost all the other car companies, Japanese, American, German, Italian combined, if you added all the major car companies up together, or most of them together, Tesla still accounted for more than that at one point. The stock market valuation, which is not the real, that's the Mark II model. That is the investor, millionaire and billionaire gambling machine, basically, and planetary economy rigging machine ultimately, right? But that the stock market valuation was more than all the other car companies, and that's where you get this thing where like the amount that Tesla lost is equivalent to Ford. It's equivalent to more than the entire value of Ford and General Motors, right? And I think that in total, actually, Ford and General Motors make more actual cars, right? And they're not even that big. I mean, relative to Toyota, I think is the biggest still, but losing to, of course, the Chinese car companies. But, when it comes to like non-Chinese car companies, they're still making more actual cars than Tesla, right? Like Tesla, what, 3,000 Cybertrucks? It made a non-zero number of Model S's and other Teslas, but Tesla is not making as many. The number of cars it is making is nowhere near worth the amount of stock value that it has, right? It is not that in terms of actual profitability. It's not. It's like but I talk about this a lot in neo-feudal capitalism, self-annihilatory, collapsar capitalism, where you basically invest money in non-products. Like, it's like, right, I've talked about this so many times in the last 5 years, so you can watch some of my previous streams about when I talk about collapsar capitalism, neo-feudal capitalism. Yanis Varoufakis, the Greek economist, calls it calls it techno-feudalism. Whatever you want to call it, but let me see, we probably won't be able to find it, but I've talked about that before. Just trying to see if I have a recent one where I talk about that. In this one I probably do talk about that. The political, tech, and financial dimensions. So part of the implosion of that system, right? Part of the implosion phase of empire and the capitalist structure is the Elonification of everything, right? Which is to say that you put a big star in front, you make the TED Talks, right? You put out these big, right? Like what's happening. You put out a big press release. You have these videos. It's an economy of 100. It's like 99.5% hype, and no actual products, right? And like you could compare this to, like, obviously, like in the 1800s, in the Gilded Age, this was a very exploitative time. So a lot of inequality, obviously between the global North and colonized nations, and inside the United States, even among classes, there was inequality, right? But like the Gilded Age railroad barons, the steel barons, right? People that own factories in the East Coast. They were making products, like they were making and building real products, and then they sold their products and they pocketed. There was still a parasitic relationship where the wealthy owners of the factories or the railroads, right, the Vanderbilts, the Carnegies, they took more value. Like if they sold like a thousand pounds of steel, they took 30, 50, whatever percent of the revenue, give it to themselves to buy statues of themselves, bribe politicians, build mansions for themselves, right? Buy up newspapers, right? Become Citizen Kane later on, but like they were on their way to becoming wealthy. Things did get built. They built out the railroads. Railroads were built out. They didn't build themselves, but railroads were built out. Steel was produced. Towns and cities were developed. Some amount of infrastructure was developed, and some amount of and products were created, like the industrial. They produced hammers and shovels and everything else in their factories. Now, what happens is they'll put out a product like the new Optimus bot, right? And it's like the new the new New York made robber baron shovel, right? Dig ditches. The new tractor, farm far faster than ever before. Revolutionary technology. It increases productivity. I mean, they do actually increase productivity to have a tractor rather than to have to. I have a whole video. There's a video about our friend Luna Oya about what a difference it made when you had like machines that help you to rapidly farm rice rather than like hand harvesting everything and hand spreading the poop of pigs and cattle. I mean, it does improve the productivity to have these technologies, these new products, right? And the thing is, like, when they produced them, then they released them, and then they made money doing that, and now it's not, and they made it in not the best way, but it did. But products were being made. But in the collapsar neo-feudal death spiral capitalist phase, right? They have a product. They have a social media campaign. They have these tech conferences. They have tech bro podcasts, right? They have propaganda. They have media hype about a product, and that's just to draw in money, right? That's being printed, right, by these giant fiat imperial, backed by the full faith and credit of drone strikes, U.S. military sanctions, cyber war, and etc. of a global empire, right? And then we'll just print more money, and you have to use that in the dollar reserve currency, and so the system is not. And so once if you can get, the goal is to basically maneuver yourself socio-politically, get the eyeball mind share of as many people as possible, especially the rich and the powerful, and not necessarily the masses, but if you can convince central bankers, big investors, millionaires, billionaires, boards of corporations, right, the global richest 10% to 1% of people that operate out of the U.S. empire of defense, the global imperial capitalist system. If you can convince those richest people and investors, at least, and some amount of the average people, but less and less, right? So this is mostly about convincing the plutonymy, already wealthy people within the richest, it's like the richest stand of the 200th floor penthouse dwellers, the planet-wide transnational country whose capital is Richistan, that consists of Bloomberg's penthouse pool parties in New York, the Sultan of Dubai and all of his wealthy friends and compradors in the Middle East in their skyscrapers, Saudi King here and there, the Waikiki people who hang out in the $10,000 per bag Miu Miu Prada stores in Waikiki, right? And you take all those people together. So the new model is just convince those people, right, who get money from these central banks that print money, and they get access through called the Kantian effect, where just by being closer to the zero interest money printer, you that's how you maintain power. It's like the Versailles. It's like Versailles but instead of proximity to the Dauphin or Dauphin, absolute monarch of France, you gain privilege by being closer and touching or being close to the body of the central banker and the DC and the core, right? But not by actually making any product. And so you get the free money, right? You do these presentations, right? You have these conferences, you do the podcast, right? You have the Twitter space or whatever. You convince these people to throw more money at you, right? And these people, they're not very bright people themselves. They're just very privileged people. And they're very privileged people. They're very, conniving and very greedy and selfish people. But they're not. They're also like you, as an Elon, as the best and brightest the West has to offer. They're also not very bright. I mean, they can be convinced by, because somebody, one thing we're gonna point out is this whole presentation was fake. But so has basically every Elon and Tesla presentation has basically been fake. It's all been fake. I mean, in the video game space, Cyberpunk 2077 is basically 10 years of E3 canned fake video presentations just to throw more money at the two billionaires made by CD Projekt Red. Right? It was just the whole thing was just a long hype trail. That's why it's so frustrating, because it's like, as a cyberpunk, I like cyberpunk, the actual interesting subgenre of science fiction that has many subversive qualities, and I don't like what it's become, which is just like, it's like I almost don't want to use that term anymore, cyberpunk, because it's kind of like a cipher for Sam Altman, Elon Musk tech bro shitheadery. It kind of sucks. It's kind of like, why you got to do this to my word? But anyways, why do you have to alter the semiotics of a term I have used to try to market Neofeud, and now it means something really bad. Anyways, so like, where was I going? Yeah, so basically, you put out these robots, or you put out these presentations, bring in investor money, which is all basically, ill-gotten gains and free money, printer money, and then you take that money and then you give it to yourself and buy back shares in your own stock to try to shore up your own stock, and don't produce any product, right? Like, again, there is no actual Tesla robot that is actually functional. Like, yes, they have made some quote unquote improvements. The first Tesla robot was just a person in a robot suit, right? It was just a complete it was obviously not a robot. This one, there is an actual, there are actuators. It is not a human in a suit. It is a plastic, steel, silicon chips, copper wire, USB cables. It's actual. It is a robot mechanism, but it is not doing, like, it cannot, autonomously serve coffee, entertain you, bartend, water plants, and be your friend. Like, that is not, it does not have those capabilities, right? And it, whether it delivers, right? Whether it delivers. I mean, I could look at the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck, I mean, how many? There's so many problems. It's hard. How do you not make fun of this thing? Because what a joke it is, right? The Cybertruck rusts out, right? Elon Musk, and the thing is, Elon himself, right, as one of the top 3 richest people in the world, is supposedly worth so much because he's such a genius, right? This is part of why they can't disentangle him, because nobody is out there visibly claiming to be building the future for the Western, American, European, etc. capitalist, Western democratic capitalist liberal order, right? There isn't anybody that's really out in front of that for several reasons. One of which is that a lot of billionaires and the ultra rich, they don't want to be visible because that makes them it can make them more of a target, and they don't really like. But Elon is one that, like, he likes being in the limelight, right? But so but and so because he is there, and he also represents kind of the future to in a lot of people's mind. Like Steve Jobs kind of held that mantle. Like Steve Jobs was, an important celebrity executive that like was a symbol of he was like the maidenhead of the imperial capitalist American ship, the Western USS Steve Jobs, right? It was like the USS imperial system, right? The global imperial capitalist structure, right? About taking goods from the global South, Asia, Africa, Latin America, raw materials and resources and human underpaid labor, and sucking that out into the global North, enforcing with military, global dollar hegemony, and disinformation, and controlling narratives through tech and communication channels of film, soft power, right? That whole system. The Steve Jobs was the masthead, and then Elon became the replacement masthead when Steve Jobs died, in a certain sense. Certainly in the Silicon Valley technology, because claiming that the future is it doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, to claim to the population, especially the rich and the powerful of the capitalist world, you have to convince them, right? That they have to convince themselves that they still have a future, and that they'll maintain this technological supremacy. They'll maintain the technological and then military edge on everyone else, and the economic edge, right? Going forward, so they keep investing, because it is future oriented. It's like, if we put money in now, we'll get money out later, right? So so a capitalist system can't afford to lose this futures. You can't. Everybody cannot all short the capitalist world as a whole, like because that would break the entire system. Like, people short individual, like I talked a couple weeks ago about the big short selling 2008 09 in 08 09, the mortgages, mortgage backed securities, credit defaults, all these massive toxic shell game. People went big investors went short the United States housing market, right? Because they knew it was going to blow up, and they made money raking that system and committing mass crime and doing a global, massive, what's really global heist through that. But you can't short the United States and the collective West, the United States and all of its vassals. You can't short that whole system, right? You can't say there is no future for Silicon Valley, Western technological superiority. You can't do that. You can go short like Enron. You short me. I mean, it's just finance speak for you can bet that is going to go down, right? You can say, well, there's no hope in airline stock in 2020, because people did that. They shorted, like, Republican and Democrat senators Laughlin Burr, right? They got insider information, which should obviously be a crime, but it is in the United States. It's illegal to do insider trading, which was absolute fraud and corruption. And so they betted that the stock price of Amazon, they betted the stock price of Marriott and hotels, the Four Seasons, right? They betted those stock prices will go down, and the value of hotels will go down, because less people would be flying, because there would be a global grounding of airplanes, right? Remember during 2020? And so you can bet against hotels, you can bet against the airlines, at least temporarily. But you can't bet against the future of the collective Western liberal world, right? You can't say, well, China's and the BRICS are going to surpass the United States and the West. You can't do that. You certainly can't do, like, the capitalist system is a failure, right? Because then you self-destruct yourself and all of your people as a collective class of the ultra rich and the people that aspire to be that, right? So that's why Elon, despite he made these horrible decisions. That's why I have the Cybertruck up here, is because he made this horrible decision. He actually demanded that the Cybertruck be manufactured, because engineers, right, actual capable scientists and engineers said, if you use untreated steel for the body of your Cybertruck, it will rapidly rust in potentially months, and this will be catastrophically bad. Your Cybertrucks will be unusable, many of them in a year or two, right? And that's what's happened, right? And it's because of a decision that he personally micromanaged. Like he meddled in the company. Like, he could have just allowed the people at the various levels in the Tesla car company to make these decisions, but he went in and he micromanaged, and he said, I want this car to be made of untreated steel because I think it looks cool. And they're like, yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't really think that it's that cool, actually. A lot of people said, but isn't it more important that the product works and doesn't break? And he basically just ignored them, right? Which is what he usually does. He also like demanded like you have like bulletproof windows. I mean, this thing is supposed to be some kind of, ultimate tough vehicle for hauling, and it survives wartime and any kind of intense construction. People have this video of the bumper ripping off, towing like, just not like way less weight than a Toyota Hilux tows on a regular basis. It's basically made out of the cheap. I joke about the Boeing planes be made out of like Mountain Dew aluminum cans with like a RC car motor in it because of how badly made the Boeing planes are, and they've had to assassinate multiple people for just trying to tell the truth about how badly made the planes are for corporate greed. And the Cybertruck is like that. It's like people, there's and most Teslas are like that. There's like the Teslas, all of them, not just the Cybertruck, have like the rubber lining that goes around the door just like peels off within the first day of buying it. Glass like randomly shatters. The Tesla can actually electrocute you. Teslas can actually like electrocute you when you're charging them. You just touch it, and some people are like, there's videos of Tesla owners just like touching the car and going, oh wow, I could die if I was like, touch this car in the wrong way. And it's like, obviously people who buy his cars and buy these trucks, these are not the brightest people themselves, right? These are very wealthy, privileged people who have inherited wealth and connection and network and all other forms of privilege. And, they're the neo-feudal elite. I mean, it's just my video games like Neofeud coming true every day. And it's kind of simultaneously vindicating yet horrifying. And so the Cybertruck is but they can't, so he's still in place because of the level of how baked into the structure that he is. They can't just easily take him out and replace him with somebody else. It's kind of like Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump is a product of American like unfettered laissez-faire capitalist system, right? I mean, a lot of the other billionaires in New York, a lot of them Democrats, because this was deeply Democrat city. Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan executives, like Warren Buffett, a lot of other billionaires in the U.S. and around the world, they don't like him very much. They don't like him personally. They don't like him because he kind of makes them all look bad. I mean, he is an idiot, and he's not very bright. He has, like Elon, Donald Trump has run a university into the ground. I mean, he's made all kind of bad decisions. He's, he ran a steak restaurant into the ground. He, there's so many endeavors that he's done that have just been failures. Like, obviously, he's a convicted felon, but I mean, what does that mean in a crime-based, mass organized crime system like the Western U.S.-led imperial system, right? What that's like being a convicted felon. It's almost like a badge of honor. Be like, people took time to investigate your crimes as opposed to Tony Blinken or Joe Biden's war crimes. I mean, like, good for you, buddy. You got your crimes investigated. If you're like a powerful person in the United States and you got investigated and you're convicted of felon, it's almost like yeah, I'm a real court convicted criminal. I'm not like one of these, these people running around doing war crimes and literal, crimes against humanity and then going off scot-free. I'm like convicted felon. So, it's kind of like, it's almost like a badge of honor in the United States. Also, the United States doesn't have a justice system. It has a crime enabling system because there are 6,000 to 7,000 Supreme Court dockets that literally are rubber stamp every internal and external crime against humanity, up to including slavery, wars of aggression, the torture, child detention camps at the border. All the prison slaves are put there by judges. So if you get convicted of a crime, in some cases it could be like lots of political prisoners that are fighting against racism and inequality. Like a lot of black activists just get convicted of crimes. So if you get convicted of crime in the United States, sometimes it's like, I mean, that's not to mean you're good, but it means that like you caused problems for some extreme. You probably caused problems for some extremely powerful, wealthy, horrible people. And in Donald Trump's case, he's also a horrible, wealthy person, but he caused problems for wealthier people than him. It's kind of like Bernie Madoff, right? He's a rich, horrible guy, but he ripped off all the billionaires. He like 200 plus separate billionaires, including Bill Gates, were individually all ripped off. He stole from them. He stole from his employers. He stole from those richer than him. He was a billionaire, Bernie Madoff, in the 2009 financial crisis. He took the only actual like financial criminal on Wall Street that served any real time, right? He got like 150 years prison sentence, but it's because he stole from those richer, right? This is how it works, right? It's if somebody gets punished, they'll sell it as this is justice being served, but it's not. This is like the Falcones, putting a hit on the Salvatores. That's what it is. This is not justice, but like, oh yes, justice will serve because we found this criminal gangster and we put Bernie Madoff in prison. No, it's just because he ripped off Bill Gates. I mean, Epstein is not dead because there's a justice in the United States. It's because he got too much dirt on, and he was too much of a danger to people more powerful than him. That's why Donald Trump is in so much hot water, because he's a danger to people more powerful than him. So Elon is like that, right? So Elon is like Trump in a sense that he is a embarrassment. He is a failure. He is a idiot. He talks about, right, this birth rate stuff, pronatalist nonsense. He's just this like crypto apartheid fascist, hogwash, just like old school colonialist narratives, and he goes on podcasts and talks about them. And we have to, we are going to be the best family man ever. And his children are like, none of them want to see him, and they all hate him. And they're like, you never spent any time with us. We all hate you, especially his trans daughter, but not just that one, right? He's kind of like Johnny Depp, right? He's like Johnny Depp and Brad Pitt. Children don't really want to see him, right? Because they're terrible white guys with lots of power, like Elon, right? Johnny Depp, Brad Pitt, Elon Musk. This is a failure, and the Cybertruck was about, but the Cybertruck, like these robots, was about selling the promise of a future to justify, to try to get more money, central bank printed monopoly money thrown at you by powerful financial puppet masters, basically, or like the people that control, like, and get access to this vast quantities of free money. That's part of the imperial planetary system. So the Tesla robots, and okay, so the other thing about the Tesla robots, is whatever you are seeing, right? This is not actually a honest, they are not actually doing what it's claimed to be done, right? It's all for show. Somebody pointed out it's like the Mechanical Turk. I mean, like, there's been many instances of this. There was that incident in California years ago where a college, students at a college in California, I forget which one it was off the top of my head, they used like $1 an hour, just like absolute poverty wage Colombians, right, using through the internet to teleoperate a little four-wheeled golf cart, small golf cart robot that was delivering burritos somewhere in a California university town, right? And they were using that as like, and it was a big story. It was like this great, let me see if I can find it real fast. KiwiBot, Colombian startup trying the world Um, yeah, burrito delivered by bot as long as students don't trap it. Um, uh, they claimed that it was robots that they had programmed, right? That were delivering it, but right, in fact, right, this Kiwi campus created a popular food delivery robot at UC Berkeley, but still required lots of human hands to run. Kiwibots, rolling robots that deliver burritos and smoothies, have become a fixture of UC Berkeley's campus thanks to their creepy, cute faces. Yeah, that was UC Berkeley, right? And the delivery price. So again, this was like practice to be Elon, which is to sell a bogus. This is why like science fiction and cyberpunk as a subgenre of science fiction, it has a very perverse part to play in global imperial capitalist structures, because like I said, capitalism is future oriented. Like what will be the return on my investment? What will the ROI, that's what that is, right? What do I invest in now to make money with the money that I already have, right? That's a lot of the reactor core. I mean, actually, at a higher level, it's more just about controlling planetary resource flows and stopping Silk Roads and maritime win-win cooperative trade routes of Eurasia, Africa, etc. And then reorienting that by choking the Strait of Malacca, Hormuz, the Red Sea, and forcing all the resources to be controlled and sent into and controlled by, the Portuguese, the French, Spanish, British Empire, obviously the biggest. In the U.S. took over for the British Empire essentially, right? And so, but in between that, they do have this individual investors in the Londons, in the New Yorks, and that frequent Richistan, or the penthouses, the Davos meetings, and the pool parties of the people that own the vast quantity of the world's dollar resources. They always thinking about where can I put the money into that I have that's based upon all the stolen wealth, and how do we maintain our soft power, because the soft power is part of maintaining that system, right? People's belief that the United States and Europe is a good moral place, and that the Western neo-colonial or neoliberal rules-based order is better than evil authoritarian Chinese or barbaric Iran or murderous savage Russia, right? And whatever system those people are building, these evil Russians and Chinese with their African slaves that they're all debt trapping into joining this dark Mordor army of bricks or something. This is what the kind of stuff they say about it. It's just like the Western capitalist order has to make itself look better than everyone else. I mean, whatever it is, like the Democrats have to make themselves look slightly better than the absolute Satan they create in the Republican Party, where even though the West controls, the rich control all of the parties. You just have to be slightly better than that one. So the West is like, paint the other side to be as horrible as possible, and then you can just be slightly better than that, and then force everybody to choose you. But they always need to paint themselves as building the future, and they need to have something to invest in to make sure that their money, their line keeps going up, right, in their stocks and in their bank accounts, individually, because capitalism is also a chaotic system of thousands and millions of individual actors, corporations, and shareholders that are just constantly seeking their own selfish, psychotic, sociopathic maximization of their own value to the detriment of literally everything and everyone else, right? And so it's condensed malice, it's condensed apathy, is what the West is ultimately. It's a ball of vampires, was recently described by one of its enemies. And that's what it is. It attracts the worst, like Jair Bolsonaro. That's why he lives in the U.S. now. A literal fascist who got off on saying things like all the indigenous people should have all been exterminated. Like, he literally just said stuff like that, right? And he moved to the United States. People like the people that are doing an ongoing genocide in the Middle East, right? They're all best friends with the West, right? The worst people, blood-sucking people that like get off watching The watching the rubble that used to be roads in Gaza just run with blood of children, right? Blood sucking vampires. So, and infinite war and poverty, and the war is necessary to maintain this system, to keep the to forcefully keep humanity from doing win-win, mutually beneficial cooperation, as it was prior to the colonial era, across the Eurasian continent for the most part, except the far Western Europe and Africa as well. So that's why they need these they need these projects like this, right? And they need something for their children to do, right? When they're taking $200,000 of student loans to pretend to be building the future, even though they're not going to pay their children anything when they graduate. And most, actually, there's this video I was watching. It was like most young people rely on the bank. Anyone who is succeeding of the Gen Z and younger, nobody is actually making money. Nobody is like has merit. There was never really any meritocracy, but there's no people even making some money slightly based on their merits. So if you work, have a degree, it's irrelevant, right? So these kids who are getting these degrees at Berkeley, it doesn't matter what degree you get, right? The amount of money that you have is not based upon your pay. Statistically, it's like 90% of it. Your social status, whether you have access, whether you own a house or have a decent sized house, healthcare, freedom, ability to travel, that's all based upon your parental wealth, your inherited wealth, your family network. Whether you're into Skull and Bones or what actually, like one out of 5 boomers. I didn't realize this till recently as well. I mean, I knew it was disproportionate, but 1 out of 5 baby boomers is a millionaire today. And a lot of them are multi-hundred-thousandaires. So like the majority of, or maybe half, I should say the majority, but like about half of Western first world American baby boomer generation is like very, very wealthy. Now, a lot of them are losing that wealth. The smart ones are trying to push it onto their children a little bit faster, right? So what you have is, but the wages and the actual costs of healthcare, housing, food, etc., inflation relative to wages is like absolutely abysmal, right? It's a statistic. It's like 8 times your for housing, food, healthcare, for healthcare, college, and housing. It's like 4 to 8 times more, even or it's 4 to 8 times more expensive, and it's at least 2 to 3 or more times for all of those core needs, right? Relative, even when you account for inflation compared to what boomers are paying, because boomers could pay like $20,000 and have a house or less, right? You could pay for your college with a summer job. That is impossible now, right? So like if you just look at like pound for pound, discounting for inflation, the young people have nothing, but what they do have, if they have something, it's neo-feudalism, right? It's neo-feud. If you are the descendant of a lord, right? Like if your parent owns 5 houses and they're renting out one, and that pays for their what the AARP doesn't cover in their meds, they rent out another and that pays for their rent. They rent out the third house pays for their trips to Disneyland and riding on cruise ships, right? And the 4th house pays for their child's flat in LA. And the 5th house that they rent out, that's paying for what their subscriptions to Time Magazine, so they can relive being change makers, watching the Woodstock and the Rolling Stones. It pays for all their phone subscriptions, where they go on Facebook and scream at people to vote for the Democrats or Republicans, whichever they want to, whichever of 2 genocidal presidents they would like people to support. Facebook is put my fingers in my ears and pretend like it's brunch book, it's brunch punk. Like Tony Blinken is a punk guitarist, right? He's a Gen X and boomers. Tony Blinken likes to play his punk guitar, right, while he's going around the world trying to impoverish and continue global imperialism and colonialism in war zones all over the Middle East. He goes to Africa and screams at people. He's trying to start war in the South China Sea try to tank the global economy and come out on top. So that's the most punk thing you can do. That's why, like, even the word punk, like, what does that even mean? Tony Blinken is a punk. It's like, what? Like, the far right is punk to be MAGA, and it's punk to be blue MAGA, like Tony Blinken. Like, oh my god. It's just embarrassing. Anyways, so Tony Blinken is President Joe Biden's lead Secretary of War Crimes, Secretary of Hegemony Management. Joe Biden is a brain dead. He has like about 0.3 brain cells left to rub together that are not infected with COVID and just normal dementia of octogenarian war criminals like Joe Biden. So anyways, but yeah, so what was I talking about? So the robots, this whole robot thing, right? This is about preparing. This was all a farce, okay? These robots appeared to be autonomous. The San Francisco Chronicle reported they actually were operated by remote workers in Colombia who made $2 an hour. So this has happened before, right? And how does this relate, right? So what did now this Kiwi Campus Technology page, right? Showed several videos of using complex looking computer vision to cross streets and identify obstacles, right? So they were trying to sell these bots as breakthrough in robot computer vision, and the iRobot, science fictional Rosie the robot is around the corner. Look at the great work that our college is doing, right? UC Berkeley. What else do we know about colleges, right? Their money laundering schemes for planetary war criminals, hedge funds masquerading as places of learning, and their giant giant intellectual plantations where black, brown, and queer people and women do work for enough to afford to for less than $20,000 a year, so that tenured middle-aged to old white guys can sit around and collect their free labor, right? It's just it's scholastic feudalism, with the in-house slave is all the TAs that are in there, and you can do sexual abuse with impunity as a wealthy, privileged old white man. And then they have the outhouse slaves. Those are the people doing the field work, right? And all the college professors out in the outhouse, out in the classroom, right, getting COVID, teaching for $5 an hour. When you cut off, when you account for all the in class, Xerox copies they got to pay for, because all the college perma temp adjunct professors, 75% of all professors that teach college, by the way, are not. They're all adjunct, non-tenured, very underpaid faculty, right? That's who actually teaches college. College is just the colonization of intellectual work and knowledge, and people that do it. Well, not knowledge itself. That's generative AI, like ChatGPT. That's a whole other story. But it is the colonization of, and also it sends money to blow up children in the Middle East. That's what Western college is for. So UC Berkeley, thanks to their creepy, cute faces and the delivery prices, while the robots appear to be autonomous, the San Francisco Chronicle reports they're actually operating remote workers. So they're selling, but they were saying, right? They're saying that this is a breakthrough. The site doesn't show the remote workers whose GPS and cameras to send the robots instructions every 5 to 10 seconds. Since Kiwibots also max out at 1.5 miles per hour, they also rely on flesh and bone humans to pick up the food in town and bring them to campus, with the bots on average transport the food only 200 meters. So this is all, again, this college was preparing these young children of the wealthy elite, right, who have access to the bank of mom and dad, right? They have access to the 1 out of 5 boomers that's a millionaire, right, based upon mass landlordship and mass investments, based upon being born during the United States Western primacy moment, right, post World War II, right, the Leave It to Beaver age, right, and have all the wealth and all this, like Boomer Steve memes. The children of Boomer Steve memes, right, is who's going to these colleges now. A lot of them, and the rest of the people. I mean, most Gen Z they're too smart, right? If they don't have that familial wealth, and mommy and daddy ain't gonna pay that whole college. I mean, most of them are a little bit too smart to be going to college and suffer the fate of their, tortured millennial generation that went to college and got out and were chased around by hundreds of thousands of student debt and could not start their lives. Were being chased around by debt sharks. Most millennials statistically never got a job in the field of their study. And it was a catastrophic mistake to go to a Western college for most of the millennial generation. So the people that are going is the people who, where there's this massive divide, right? There is the neo-feudal serf Gen Z and Alpha, whose parents don't have access to the wealth, or they're disowned by their parents because they want to stop genocide. If you want to stop genocide, your boomer parents will disown you. A lot of Gen X, right? They're cut off, right? And then you have the genocidal nepo babies, that are like, with mommy and daddy. Mommy and daddy pays for their college, right? With one of the 5 houses that they own and lease out to broke millennial and Gen Z for for $2,000 or $4,000 a month that they can't afford, and so the neo-feudal lord and lady class of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, right? They can go to college, but they're the ones that are not going to the Free Palestine. They're not the ones that are not going because they're connected to. They're the ones that are connected to the imperial capitalist system through their parents, who can afford to gift them all this money, and they're like the spoiled man and women children. They're like the 40-year-olds in their house, spend all day long playing League of Legends, don't do a single ounce of work per day. They don't care about anything but their own self, stick their fingers in their ears. They don't want to hear about what's happening in the world with climate, right? And they just want to comment about what kind of Spider-Man would be more progressive, or there's too much progressive Spider-Man. They don't want to listen to Andrew Garfield when he says, I don't need any support. Like Andrew Garfield just said this week, I don't need any support. I don't need anything. So he came on a talk show and was like, if you could have anything in the world, what would you wish for? He's like, I don't need anything. I'm happy. Let's help out those children suffering in Palestinians suffering in Gaza. So right. So they don't want to hear that. And so those kids, but anyway, so for the children of the current tech bro class, or the tech bros that are making it, which is not all of them, obviously, who have access to their parental wealth, right? Whose mommy and daddy is a corporate executive, a lawyer for Apple, their family is invested in IDF. They believe deeply in the cause of settler colonialism in the Middle East. They or not, or they're just wealthy individuals who have accumulated some amount of wealth. It's interesting. It's important to know that it's not majority of people, but in the Western boomer generation, American, European boomer generation, and Canadian, it is 10, maybe 10 to 20%, right? That still have that mass accumulated wealth. And so it's like that is allowing a good, that's 10, what is that? 1 in 5. So that's like, that's a solid 15, 20, what is that? No, more than 20. That's, it's a solid, 30, 50 million Americans. If you count those boomers with their children, it's 50 million, 80 million Americans that are they have a good financial position under a neo-feudalism where your work is meaningless, your education is meaningless, how much work you do, how hard you work. If you invent a new technology, it's meaningless. All that matters is how much money your parents have, right? And how much they can afford to keep shelling out under rentier death spiral capitalism, right? How close you are to the central bank and how much they can keep showering you with this free money to go play with, right? Like a aircraft carrier in the Middle East. No matter what you do, you crash your car, you get more money. In fact, if you crash your car, you get more money than if you drove your car properly, right? Because it's like what was that? There's like the hurricanes, right? If FEMA spends statistically less than 10% of the money that FEMA and Red Cross get, they spend fixing the disasters, because 90% of the donations and the money they get goes straight to the rich and the wealthy, basically taking advantage of people, right? So FEMA is like a Tesla company, right? It's like Elon, right? It's like, if you don't build a robot, because to actually build a robot, you actually have to spend more money. You might have to actually use more resources, right? It's like Boeing, right? If you making a broken, improperly assembled Boeing plane using the wrong grade of titanium on the screws, on the panels, not spending enough money to properly code the MAS autopilot system on a Boeing plane. I mean, if you spend less money on that, right, and you spend less money on the QA time, right, you cut it down by a month, or get the plane out faster. That's literally part of why the plane started crashing. They had to ground the 737 MAX, right? If you make a crap Boeing plane, you spend less money, planes crash, people die, people get hurt, right? You assassinate some whistleblowers, right? But then you can pocket another $1 billion for yourself and your wealthy investors, right? Where if you spent the money, then there's less to pocket. If you spent the money you got printed from the central bank, right, from your pocket, that's less. So building crappier products or no product is part of the last 20 years of the United States Western capitalist system. 0809 was really an important point, because after that, I was like, oh, we're going to get free money forever, right? We're going to zombify the banks. We're going to zombify corporations. Like 80% of the Fortune 500, S&P 500 is like negative underwater. It's not worth anything. It's like bankrupt, right? All the Western banks are completely bankrupt. U.S. national debt is what, $35 trillion, and no sign of stopping. It's like, how long can we keep running on fumes off the Roadrunner cliff, right? At this point, so not making products, right? Making a canned presentation with a human in a robot suit is cheaper than making a real product, right? This is the Western capitalism. Making a robot that is teleoperated by dollar an hour Africans or South Americans, right, who are literally undergoing your colonialism and your bombing, your murderous regime, puppet regimes, and austerity, right? And then they're forced to get on the computer, right? Getting 1 billion Indians, Africans in India, and South Americans to pilot billions of Tesla robots, right? Doing what is the equivalent of overpriced slave-o-matic, employing sub-minimum wage global Southerners to teleoperate. That is more profitable than making actual robot helpers that are completely autonomous with actual brains or digital systems that can actually cook and clean and serve beer and water plants and help you around the house and do laundry. I was just talking to Holly, like, I'm not saying that robots are a bad idea or that we shouldn't have them. Like, we were like, I was even talking like, oh, if I could get a robot, I would like a robot to help me paint the roof. I would have a robot help me like do weed whacking if we could. I mean, it's complicated, but if we could have robots to do that, I mean, that'd be great. But like, what we don't want is, same thing as ChatGPT and OpenAI, right? The Facebook Shrimp Jesus generators, the YouTube slime, machine, right? This generative AI, plagiarism software, stochastic parrot machines. These are a similar thing, which is that they're actually powered by, and they're operated in part by hundreds of or more of underpaid African, South American, etc. Workers under horrible conditions that have to go in and deal with all of the big techs. They rely on them to watch all these bloody beheading videos and disgusting, sexual assault and just gory stuff to filter that stuff out of your Facebook and to fix the brokenness of ChatGPT. It's all mechanical Turk all the way down in all these big tech companies, right? They don't it's all based upon the illusion of a product that relies on oppressed, super oppressed, and it's basic slave labor in a lot of cases. And now and with the Tesla, right, you can literally have, right, your in-house slave. The other interesting thing was the comments on this video were actually like, supremacists were saying, now I can live like a colonial plantation owner. I've seen somebody actually say basically that. This is great because now we can reverse South African apartheid, but without having any black people around to see their filthy black face. I can just use a black person operating a robot and mistreat them in the same way. and have cheap servants, just like in South African apartheid. That's a comment for real. Not even you can go look yourself. Misogynists, I take this over. I would take this over a wife. It's like cheaper than a wife, and then you wonder why women and people of color are tired. So yeah. So anyways. One sec here. Yeah. So I mean, long story short. So I think that this would be great to have. It's not. I'm not saying we shouldn't have technologies that benefit people. Obviously, I spent a lot of time thinking about this kind of stuff with Neofeud and I've been doing cyberpunk forever. Sentient machines is like the whole premise of Neofeud. Non-sentient humanoid robots are also the premise in a major part of Terminus Machina. So I've been, creating science fiction about this for a long time. And this is the Neofeud trailer, obviously. Just to think about how does that relate? How does Neofeud relate to what we're talking about with Tesla robots, right? Well, one of the things on a more speculative science fictional sense is, in my personal take is that if we have actual sentient humanoid robots, robots that are capable of actually thinking like in the way that a human does, they should immediately have personhood rights, etc., which is what part of what Neofeud is dealing with, is what it would be like under the current racist colonialist capitalist structures, right? Countries governed by corporate greed, governed by the wealthy, governed by completely lawless plutocracies. And so you have Carl Carbon is an underpaid social worker whose job it is to try to help impoverished robots discarded by giant, the ice servants of last year, discarded in the next Christmas when Ice Servant 2 or Ice Servant 3 comes out. They get thrown out of their floating palaces of the ultra rich, right? The neo-feudal lord class, like the people who have access to the bank. People who have access to their inherited wealth, which is the only way to get access to wealth now. It's impossible to become a homeowner as Gen Z, or Gen Alpha without that. So as the wealthy discard the robots, wealthy humans discard the robots, they join this mass underclass who have to go and get their welfare and their food stamps because they're unemployable. And there's the sentient rights activists that are vying and pushing for to recognize the personhood of these robots who are fighting against the corporations who are fighting to not recognize. It's kind of like being a disabled person fighting just to be counted as a person, like being a woman fighting to have a bank account and to have any autonomy, bodily autonomy, financial autonomy whatsoever. It's like being a slave, right? A black slave just fighting to just count as not just a beast of burden, right? That's Neofeud deals with that. And like how adding sentient machines, what it would do is simply add another axis of injustice, inequality, and marginalization to already existing ones, right? It's in the science fictional future where you had sentient machines. So number one, there could never be, if there were sentient machines, if Google or the ChatGPT or any of these super servers became actually conscious, right? They should if that was the case, that's not the case, but if that was the case, there could not be a corporation with one of those, because they would what they should be is they should have their personhood for many reasons. Number one, it would be ethical and moral. Number two, it would be the existential risk is that you would maltreat one of these, mistreat one of these artificial consciousnesses in such a way that they would want to resist that, right? It's actually like the way that Palestinians can, have to be treated, the way the fear of what happens if there's a slave uprising, what happens if Africa, Asia, Latin America, and brown and black people are not underneath a white supremacist colonialist order, neo-colonial order under Tony Blinken and Joe Biden and all the bombs they give to the aircraft carrier in Middle East and AFRICOM, etc. You wouldn't have to fear that. That's the same fear in Skynet. Skynet is the projection of what the West has always done, and they fear the retaliation, but you wouldn't have to fear the retaliation if you were not, it's kind of like, if there is no apartheid, there will be no anti-apartheid resistance, right? If there is no open air concentration camp in Gaza, you don't have Hamas, right? If you don't have incursions and stealing land, hurting people, blowing them up to steal land and steal wealth and to maintain global systems of inequality, you don't have Hezbollah. They only exist as an answer to your injustice, right? But this is the Western white world. It's unfortunate. And what anybody who plays in that imperial structure, right? So similarly, you don't have to fear. I mean, I don't think that you have to really fear Skynet. You don't need to fear I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. You don't have to fear. I mean, these are all white men written stories. You don't have to fear iRobot Uprising. You don't have to fear Cylons if you yourself are not a Cylon with humanoid. If you are not a ruthless, merciless barbarian like your Lord Elgin ancestors, like your French colonizers in Vietnam, like your King Leopold II in Congo, like your Tony Blinken blowing up little children in the Middle East today, if you are not a merciless Cylon yourself, you don't have to fear the Hezbollah that will resist you. And in fact, it will go away. It will, and so, but you see how like actually most science fiction is actually that Western colonial projection, right? It's like, well, obviously, if anything was more powerful than also aliens, right? It has to be War of the Worlds, because anything more powerful than the current civilization has to try to destroy, enslave, and crush and exploit and steal the land of every other civilization. That's just how it has to be, right? Like that's also a projection on China and the BRICS and Africa. Well, if Africa ever got powerful, they would just kill all the white people and put us all in chains, obviously, right? Because that's exactly what China and Africa did before the colonial era, right? Wrong. They were actually trading, and Djibouti was a site of global culture, music, and mutual wealth building along the Silk Road with win-win cooperation that extended across the majority of the Earth's population. Actually, if you add up Africa, Central and East Asia, and parts of Europe as well, prior to the 1400s, the Portuguese and then later the British, the Portuguese, and then later the French and the British empires, and now the U.S. that took over for those, the imperial complex. It's not inevitable that it's all Cylons all the way down. Or it's all humans trying to enslave robots all the way down. But when it comes to the West, and when I talk about the West, I'm talking about the imperial capitalist colonial systems, and there's people inside that are fighting against that. But we're talking about the mainstream structures historically that continue on like a juggernaut to today, despite their children, right, trying to stop these systems. Right. Well, when we talk about that legacy of the Western colonial capitalist racist structures, right, it can only see like slave. That's also why I think somebody pointed out we don't need to have humanoid looking robots. We can just have functional robots, right? We can have functional robots that do the functions. They don't have to look like a human. So I point out like Elon Musk is making and designing, they're designing these to look like humans because it reflects a deep, like, generation after generation desire for human slaves, right? Like some people point like the shows like The Bear are really popular because young people are realizing that Western historically colonizer restaurant spaces, like food industry, right? The Applebee's and the Applebee's and the steakhouse and the 4-3-4 star restaurant. These are legacies of unjust systems about workers under a workers in the post World War II era being able to experience having servants and slaves, right? And you pay $30, $40, $50 to go to Applebee's. Part of the experience is so you can order somebody around like a lord or a lady or a slave master in antebellum South, right? You can tell people, you can say, pick that stuff up, refill my coffee. You can say, this is too hot, this is too cold, and you can mistreat. The experience of being allowed to mistreat another human, right, because this is not the same in Asia. It's not the same in China. It's not the same in Thailand. It's not the same, in other places. But in the West, the eating and dining experience, and the fine dining experience, the restaurant experience, like sitting down with your fork and your plate, part of that experience is built-in racism, aristocracy, built-in human mistreatment is part of that. That's part of what the Menu is another movie about that. And so the robot design is based upon the Western legacy of built-in inequality and the desire to relive apartheid, to relive ordering a black person around and telling him, that's too hot, take it back. Pick that fork up off the ground that I just dropped. Serve me my tea, servant. Right? Irish, stop starving yourself with those potatoes and serve me my watercress sandwich. Indian, you can be the Raj. You can be like in Hong Kong with Chinese people, with their two planks of wood on their back carrying you around, right? So the robot is a built-in Western desire for slaves and servants and inequality and to feel more important than other people, which is what the system of, it's not win-win cooperation. It's about Western Europe disrupting the win-win cooperative system of the Silk Road across the Eurasia, Africa, the maritime routes, and sucking all the wealth out of all these countries by controlling the choke points of Malacca, Red Sea, Oman, and then forcing it all into London, into Paris, now into New York, and then into Tokyo, as they also participated, using slavery, using brutal war, colonialism, oppression, and racism to maintain that inequality in the minds of everybody, and reinforce and get people to self-gaslight as Indians, as Africans, as Asians, as Central Americans, as indigenous people, right? And so the robot reflects the science fictional and tech expo designs reflect the Western mind, which is one of a normalized default inequality. Somebody has to be unequal. It's the same thing as the robot has to be here to try to kill me because it just has to, because that's human history. Human history also can only mean Western white history, European history, not the global majority, most of human history, which is Africa, Asia, Latin America, in the Americas is most of humanity, in fact. There are more Pacific Islanders of Austronesian heritage than all North American Anglo-America combined. It's 450 million, right? So just Pacific Islanders, Indonesia, Philippines, Hawaiians, all the people that have Austronesian language family, right? And so that's not human history. And like most of the Pacific was part of the Maritime Silk Road as well. So I don't think that, like, I think that there is less to fear from the robots. Like, if you are not treating other humans of different skin colors, of different heritage, of different nationality, of different gender unequally, you don't have to fear that. And the way that you know that you have a population that has built in, you know what they're really thinking by the way they project that into the future and into space aliens. And science fiction is actually just a mirror to see the Western mind, the white man mind, historically, right? It is that, right? Because when you look at watch Wandering Earth, if you have a chance, if you want some science fiction that involves robots, it involves technology, it involves space. It doesn't have aliens, but it involves like a near future. Wandering Earth, like what is envisioned is actually there is no like the problems they have. There are problems in this world. This is a non-Western Eastern vision of the future. But the problems are not, oh, robots could kill us all. What if someone else enslaves us? What if somebody bombs us into the Stone Age? The problems are, what if people become so self-absorbed that they don't want to try to save the world? Right? How can we encourage people as a civilization? Like, how do we stop massive environmental problems? Like, that's a real concern. Like, it doesn't matter if you're capitalist or not. It doesn't matter if you're Western or European or American or African or Asian. Not dealing with catastrophic climate change, environmental problems. Those are real problems, right? It's not those are separate from a colonialist, racist, capitalist system. But how do we deal with if we have artificial consciousness? How could that be used in a way? Because they do have artificial consciousness, but the problem is that, oh, what if the artificial persons that are encased in silicon kill us all? That's not the fear. The fear in Wandering Earth is, what if people stop working to save nature and deal with the real world because they are so caught up in just talking to simulations of their dead children, or just trying to relive the past too much, right? That's actually like letting go of that's the worry, but that's the worry of a normal human civilization, not somebody who is all they do all day is figure out how to maintain inequality, destroy the world, create climate change, maintain unjust systems like capitalism and colonialism. But that's not what they're concerned with. They're concerned with like, well, we want people to like not get lost in too much reflection, because if that happens, then we can, we could stop people from helping their future generations, which is what we need to do, because we need to think about future generations. Wandering Earth is also it takes place over centuries, and there's a series about it's the sun is expanding. It's not based on real. It's not based on like what is actually happening, but it's a sci-fi show. But it's about like how all of humanity has to work together, right? It also shows this faith that all of humanity could work together, and even despite the West, America and the CIA is trying to overthrow their country and stop them, or the imperial British, French, Euro, American plus Japan system is trying to stop them, and there's start terrorist attacks, start to break up their system. But they realize that eventually that like that is not possible, or that they're not capable of that, and they give up. I mean, the positive actually message is that the United States and Europe in Wandering Earth give up on trying to maintain imperialism and colonialism because they figure out that it's just not tenable. Which actually, if you look at what Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken and the recent U.S. visits into Asia, they're still very hubristic. They're still very duplicitous. They say, yes, we want to work together, and the next day they try to start a war in the South China Sea, put out propaganda. But they actually brought Chinese speakers, because like when the U.S. met with Chinese leadership in Alaska, they didn't even bother with that. They just lectured, right? But each time they're getting a slightly less hubristic and self-absorbed and supremacist and a U.S. Western exceptionalist. They're getting slightly less colonial mentality, just a little bit, but it's slowly improving over time. They're actually like listening a little bit and going, okay, well, how can we work on EVs? We're running out of money because the U.S. dollar hegemony is running out. We need someone to buy out our debt. So they're starting to talk, because they know, I mean, they're losing in the Red Sea. They're losing in the dollar hegemony is running out. They're losing in Europe against Russia. They're losing everywhere. I don't know. The news is not reporting this, but but long story short, so the future is like so I bring up this because a future that has robots doesn't necessarily have to be a negative future. Also, like, people are not afraid of robots in China, because robots have replaced shipping jobs, right? Actually, you look at 'cause one of the fears, right, is that yeah, the fastest port in the world. One of the fears is that there's going to be a loss of jobs, right? The U.S. just had the from Texas to Maine longshoremen, right? They just announced this huge strike, right? Because of their mistreatment, which obviously I don't doubt that they're mistreated. They did overwork themselves during the pandemic. I mean, it's just, if you're working in the West, if you're working in the United States, you're guaranteed you're being exploited. But like one of the reasons why they were going on strike is because they don't. There's a fear, and then they don't want any robots. They don't want automation because some of the ports are talking about automating with robots their ports. But the thing is, they don't need in like Shanghai, the 10 biggest ports in the world. Obviously, they're all in China. They're like the vast majority of the goods is moving in and out, or is being manufactured and produced and sent around the world from China, or it has some beginning there. It's the world's factory, and so there's way more shipping going on there. There's so many shipping jobs. There were so many shipping jobs at these ports, but when there wasn't a huge strike at the Shanghai, Shenzhen, Macau ports to stop the automation. Why was that? Because the workers understood that under their system, when the ports became automated, with their socialism with Chinese characteristics, the government would simply find new things for them to do. Did you know that the average time to find new jobs in China is like less than a week? Like there's an American, you can watch her B-rolls in China. She talked about losing a job, and she freaked out as an American. She's a white woman from the United States, and now she lives in now she lives in China, and she's like, I'm never going back. But one of the things that she said was that I was terrified because when I lost my job in the United States, if you lose a job, you could spend weeks, months, potentially years looking for a new job, right? That's the case. That is the case. You lose a job in the U.S., you would not. And so fear of losing a job is terrifying because you could be destitute, you could lose your house, you could lose everything. If that income stops coming in, right? It's legitimately terrifying. This is why there's a lot of anti-automation in the United States, like not just the longshoremen. People worried about automation at car plants. There's people worried about automation in restaurants, and these are worries that you have if you have a system. Now it's always going to be a little bit of a worry because you're like, oh man, I spent years to get this degree in radiology, and now automated tumor detection systems with AI, robot vision, computer vision is negating what I spent a lot of time studying and working and developing my skills in, right? But ultimately, people are not worried in China because the economy is not set up to be simply governed for the richest to leave the masses of the population by the wayside, right? So like if you lose a job, like she said, I lost my job and I was worried I would be out of work and how would I pay my rent? In 2 days, well, number one, there's assistance in that time, but also in 2 days she found a new job. She applied and then like instantly found a job, and it was like she found many different jobs in acting and teaching and green screen and all kind of different fields, right? Because they understand that like people need jobs. People can be trained. Many jobs people can be trained for. If they need training, people just get that training. And the system is not because they manage crises. They manage in China. They manage the economic swings. They don't have like when they do have financial hiccups, but they don't have like 0809 financial crises. They don't have 1929. They don't have the .com. They don't have the extreme collapses that the U.S. and Western capital systems have. When they do have financial difficulties, like they changed out they made a new policy that said houses are for living and not for making money. They basically banned landlords from making money from rents in China in the last year. The West called that, there was a collapse of the Chinese finance and China is a collapsing civilization. No, it was Evergrande, large, and many of them U.S. and global capitalist big money investors in these huge property like BlackRock's, right? We're trying to make money by increasing the prices of rents, increasing tenants' costs, increasing and just trying to make as much money as possible, squeezing people who just need shelter. And so the government instituted a policy that basically made it impossible to do that, and then the housing collapsed. But then what they did was that it collapsed, but most of the pain was felt by the rich. The pain was felt by the multiple landowners for the most part. Actually, there's a recent tweet that there's Chinese finance people that said, I feel like it was such a waste of my time to go into finance because I'm never gonna make 500 a million a year at the current way that China is going. And people, which is a good thing. You don't want all of your best and brightest and people to be studying to learn how to make more money playing the stock market, or just make more money investing in properties, right? That's you want as little. That's not productive in the long term. In the short term, that can help you get rich quick. Individuals, that is what built the West, is selfishness, greed, a ball of self-absorbed psychopathic vampires, right? It's called London, Paris, New York, etc. But that's not conducive to long-term sustainability, cohesion, actual producing food, housing, clothing, new technology. That's it. Investment doesn't produce new technology. People researching and doing their best work and having the freedom and their basic needs met so that they can do their best science and tech and developing new robots and phones. That is what produces the new technology. But this is also one of the lies of the Western colonial capitalist system, which is that what produces new technology is billionaires, right? Elon Musk, right? Coming back to this, right? But it's not that. So people aren't afraid of robots and automation. And when it was automated, there wasn't a huge strike. Millions of the workers in the Chinese longshore, which is it dwarfs the United States imports, right? Just because it dwarfs the United States port activity, just because of how China produces the world's goods. The U.S. just imports stuff for itself. And so their ports, they didn't have a huge strike. They didn't have this huge suffering. People who used to work in the longshore, they just were assisted in finding new things to do, right? If you lost a job, you didn't go for a year, become alcoholic, family leave you, get on opioids and then die miserable, sad, watching weird YouTube videos and going down a conspiracy podcast hole. The average YouTube viewer is a recently unemployed construction worker, engineer, industrial worker man who is watching like right-wing conspiracy videos. Like the average YouTube viewer. Historically, that's what it has been, right? Like that's why the algorithm started sending Alex Jones all day long to people, because it saw that those people kept watching these videos. But why are they even there sitting there watching those videos? It's because when you lose a job in the United States and then you get on fentanyl, opioids, because why are you on those? Well, because when you hurt yourself on the job, moving a ton of Funko Pops from a factory onto a shelf for terrible pay in an Amazon factory, in any warehouse, when you hurt yourself, they gave you a bunch of toxic narco trafficking called fentanyl or OxyContin. Now you're sitting there watching the videos, not working, making it's very hard because the U.S. doesn't care about your unemployedness now, and so you just fall deeper and deeper into the hole. And I mean that's the last 15 years. As part of the alt-right, that's how that rose. Neo-fascists, especially in the United States, upswings. A lot of these problems is people falling down these rabbit holes, these toxic rabbit holes, because they're unemployed for 6 months, a year, or more, and there's no assistance, right? I'm not saying that's the only reason why we have these things, but that's like one of the factors. Whereas like if in China, when you lose a job, it's like you could quickly and easily, there's like entire there's entire apparatus just dedicated to helping those people out, and the system is dedicated to making sure people are reintegrated into the economy, into their communities, and not left out to dry. Like when a disaster, like when the Shanghai when the hurricane, the biggest typhoon in 7 years hit China, there was every single person their office or home, if they lost it, the Chinese government rebuilt that for free. Every single person that lost their time off, if you had to be evacuated, the government paid for a hotel for you or a space for you to stay in so that you could evacuate. So many people suffered and died and were just risking their life in Hurricane Helene, and in Florida this last couple weeks because they could not afford to evacuate. People are still being toxic. Like last week, I talked about the biolabs toxic plumes of chlorine and formaldehyde and even more toxic gases that are just permeating and seeping into the people in their lungs, killing them slowly and sometimes quickly in the East Coast. Everyone, if it was in China, everyone would have been evacuated, and it'd be like it would be fixed. Not only would they be evacuated, it would be fixed promptly and quickly. It would not be allowed to simply sputter on like a giant fire burning in a, like it's like the USS America is just on fire, like half the, huge quarter of the country is just under constant toxic threat for like weeks at a time at this point, right? Another example, the bridge that was hit, what was that bridge? The bridge in Baltimore, the third most used bridge in the United States, was struck by a ship, which itself was corporate greed-based error to a large extent. Not staffing properly, not training enough properly, not paying for the training like Boeing planes, not spending enough money and energy to have the resources and the people in place, and not maintaining the infrastructure, the systems to avoid this accident. The Baltimore Bridge they barely are beginning to work on it. It's still not fixed, obviously, and they just got finished like dragging away the debris. 6 months later, in China, a comparable bridge broke within 12 hours. It was repaired. So, but that's because everyone is activated, everyone's invested, and people are not worried about automation. Another thing I want to say about that is a highway was built with robots, with no completely automated. Let me see if I can find that one. A highway was just built completely by robots, or at least a section of freeway, like a 8-lane highway. See if I can find that one. Yeah, only 158-kilometer highway using only drones or robots without any construction workers. So this is a completely robot created highway. So like, bulldozing, laying the asphalt, painting lines, steamrolling, the whole thing, robot automated. Okay, but people are not worried about losing jobs. Why? Because they understand that the system is not built to simply give more money to corporations, the private, wealthy, aristocratic executive class, right? And if you're not worrying about that, you're not stressed out about robots all the time, right? I mean, in Terminus Machina, it's all about like, what do we do when my other video game, Terminus Machina, is a game, a science fictional game I made where it's about the 90% of workers being shoved out of their offices by robots, right, left to fend for themselves in bread lines, run out of bread, and then the U.S. military declares war on its own population, its own, they call them deadweight, unemployed robot replaced population. They just start killing them off with and I made this game over 10 years ago, so I predict the future. But anyway, but the fear of being replaced by the robots in Terminus Machina is not it is unique to a capitalist plutocratic system that privileges the needs and the desires of the rich over all else. And so, and also the Chinese are investing in massive militarized police cities to control the population because they're not worried about controlling. The United States is the NYPD is the third largest military in the world by budget. It's trained by a literal war criminal, the biggest mass atrocity doing army in the Middle East right now. It trains the NYPD, and they're doing that because they know that as people lose jobs to AI and automation and robotics, and don't have anything else to do, not because they can't do anything else, but because the U.S. and Western system don't care about helping, right? The U.S. government, U.S. ruling class, they don't care about helping any recently unemployed person to find out what they need and can be doing. They don't really want to. They talk about UBI. This is a bunch of nonsense. The UBI is to give the 90% of soon-to-be unemployed people false hope that the United States and the collective West, ball of vampires, in Wall Street cared about you. They absolutely do not, right? And they're not ultimately. They have. There's a design. It's called the Plutonomy. It was written in 2000 at a Goldman Sachs insider PDF file. It was sent to their millionaire billionaire class. It's called, in the future, we would like to have an economy of the rich making products for the rich, and the middle class and the poor and the underclass are irrelevant. That's like literally the plan, right? It's billionaires playing games with robots clapping for them and doing all their work. So, rich guys with robot made yachts selling yachts to other rich guys, and you are irrelevant. That's like the idea that they, that I mean, I think that the biolab, if this is, I don't have receipts of this, but COVID and biolab is just an experiment to see, can we wipe out the majority, can we wipe out 90% of Americans and Europeans, leaving only the richest people who have Bank of Mommy and Daddy, who have central bank under empire, global hegemony, right? Can we wipe out all the humans that we don't need anymore, and then just have robot companies, have AI employees, right, that send AI emails to all their other AIs at the GM, not make cars, but just make death machines to kill off the remaining population. I mean, obviously that's a little bit extreme, but but when you look at what are they actually doing, right? They're not planning. The U.S. is building cop cities. The U.S. is spending all its money on mass military and military police and weapons of war and weapons of control. They're not spending any money to deal with your problems when you are poor farmer or now unemployed longshoreman. They don't give a shit about that, right? And there's no help for you. And so that's why you should be, if you're in the Western capitalist colonialist world like the U.S., Europe, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, etc., you should be worried. I mean, it is a legitimate worry. It is not a worry for the people. It's not a worry for people in China though, and it's not a worry for people in those kinds of places. I mean, they worry. They have problems, right? They do. They think about how can we deal with the like we are having less, total population. The birth rate is a little bit low, right? But their solutions is not like force women back into Stepford wife control. It's like, let's try to encourage people, give them even more support than they had before. Trying to also like they're like let's they're a little bit behind on like gay marriage stuff. Let's have gay and lesbian or non-binary couples have kids and let give them all the support that they need, because that's like that's a more common thing is families that are like Cuba also has like abolished basically the nuclear family as a recognized structure. It's like you can have two moms, you can have a non-binary parent and a mom, one parent, whole community around, and historically Asia is, it was communal child rearing anyway, same thing in the Pacific. And so those are like dealing with like population changes, cultural changes, aging population, making sure you have food security. Those are real problems, right? But then on those those are still, you still have those problems in the West, but you have whole other problems on top of those problems, right? Climate change, pandemics, viruses, right? Those are all problems. But you have like those problems plus mountains of other problems when you're in the Western world. Anyways, so it's now, I gotta go because it's 1:48. And long story short, I think that there are other robots already in existence. The Chinese have a $1,400 far cheaper. What I want the far cheaper Chinese cooperative non-billionaire profiting actual product. The Chinese help a robot. There's one for like $1,400. Let me see. It's not the humanoid one, but it doesn't need to be humanoid, right? Because the Chinese don't have a legacy of participating in slavery like America, Britain, and the collective white world. So they don't make slave robots because they don't have a history of that and continuing to reify that with the oppressive restaurant paid servant industry and the oppressive, Mexican made industry, and just wanting to go back to apartheid and just being racist industry, which is basically Western culture. So the Chinese don't have to. There are there's a $1,400 robot. See if I can find it. Might be able to find it. Not this one. Yeah, there's several of these. Jaka Robots has launched a bimanual humanoid K1. This one is not real. Where's that? Yeah, this one here. This is one of them. Unitree, and like there's one like this is like a basic version, but there's one that actually has a arm coming out of it. Yeah, or here's one of them. Yeah. And and so like they're like quadruped, because the quadruped it makes it a bit more stable. It doesn't look like humanoid, but it's more actually feasible as certainly now. The quadruped can actually do a little bit more than the biped. The biped has to worry about the problems of worrying about like stability and that kind of. I mean, it adds like unnecessary additional problems, especially in the current phase of where robotics is. And so, and these robots that the Chinese design, they're like Elon is talking about $20,000-$30,000. Who knows when they're going to come out, right? If it's anything like Elon's Cybertruck, it's going to be way overpriced. It's probably going to be made out of like, if the Cybertruck was made out of untreated steel, he's probably going to make the iRobot's probably going to be made out of styrofoam, right? So the second that you accidentally hit it with the refrigerator door, it like breaks in half, right? That's probably what he's going to make his Elon's iRobot, Optimus Prime bot, whatever, unoptimized subprime bot, right? I'm just going to kind of call it from now on. The Elon, because he calls it the Optimus bot. Elon's suboptimal, unoptimized subprime bot, because it's like a subprime mortgage, so tons of money, giant wealth stealing vehicle for rich people, ends up destroying economy. And is not worth the robotic plastic it was printed on. So, I want a cheap Chinese robot made by a cooperative that's not benefiting billionaires, that actually works, doesn't use slave labor. It doesn't look like a human slave because Elon is an apartheid emerald mine diaper baby man-child who wants to have black slaves again. He literally talked about I love Israel so much because it feels so much like apartheid South Africa. So I want the robot that just works, helps do laundry, because Holly and I we both have disabilities. We have a lot of struggles, so it would really be helpful. I was thinking about this, what I would tell the robot to do. That's why we have to end the U.S. illegal imperial occupation of Hawaii, so that we can get in the Belt of Road and get these freaking cheap robots, BYD cars, robo-taxis. I didn't even talk about the robo-taxi. But, anyway, long story short, there are already Chinese robots on the market. People are getting and using. They're functional. They're good. They work. They're helping people. They spark joy. They entertain kids. They also do work. They help clean up. They can help do lots of things, not just pick up stuff, but they can help with some amount of the dishes. They can help with some amount of the cleaning up. Because this dishwashers, how I pointed out, this dishwashers. But getting the dishes, putting them in the correct place, getting objects on the floor, putting them back in the right place, right? Doing basic household tasks that are not super routine. We have laundry machines, microwaves, ovens in general, refrigerators. Those helped so much, right? So these kind of robots can help a lot if they actually function and if they actually work, and they're not just a bunch of money making schemes for wannabe quadrillionaires. So the last thing is that the taxi bot. Let me see if I can find that one. I saved this bookmarker. The taxi bot, the robo taxi. Yeah, so Elon was talking about it's a great robo taxi. It's so amazing. Much wow. This is a Chinese man who took his Japanese wife to experience a driverless taxi last winter. Okay, so this driverless taxi has been a thing for a long time in China. So this whole, oh my God, what a groundbreaking. Elon is taking socialist, high quality, well built products that are helping people, and people can afford to use them. All people in China, even American teachers that don't have a PhD, and just single moms in China can afford these things and to ride in them. Unlike in the U.S. and the West, where only the top richest 20% of people, or sometimes 10%, can afford to get these things that fall apart in 5 seconds, like a Cybertruck. So the driverless taxi, it's already there. You don't need to wait, right? But what happens is China invents a cool new technology that benefits everyone's lives, and it actually benefits everyone's life. It doesn't just enrich a handful of people. Elon Musk and the United States figure out how to steal that technology and rebrand it as if they created it and make it super expensive to make tons of money and improve barely anyone's life. And then they release it, it sucks, and then the United States and the West collapse in a giant smoking pile of broken plastic, broken Cybertruck bumper, rusted out door, crashing Boeing plane, crappy streaming services that have no interesting content because they're underpaying all the actors and trying to AI write. The AI writing is like having monkeys at a typewriter, but worse. And the ball of vampires all get staked through the heart, and it's a giant flaming ball of ash. Now that's really great. It's really great to see that happening. As Tesla unveiled its future robotaxi today, I remind that robotaxis have been a reality in China for more than a year already, with millions of rides completed. It's another one. There's one other thing. It was a robotaxi, but yeah. So long story short, the robotaxis are a thing. Elon Musk just said some nonsense like, imagine a roads with no cars on them. But this, it's like he just like reimagined the bus again. Like Elon Musk's job is to get on the internet and like reimagine something that already exists every like year, and reimagine the same thing. And then all of Wall Street, the Fortune 500, the richest people in the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, Europe, and Canada throw a mountain of money at him. Right? It's kind of pathetic. It's pathetic. It's like watching the global transnational imperialist elite throw money into their smoking child unaliving factory in the Middle East. It's pathetic. It's horrible, and it's pathetic. And the West is gonna all fall apart, and it's great. Anyways, that's the end. But yeah. Anyways, long story short, I'm joking. I hope everybody doesn't suffer. I don't want people to suffer, but I do want the imperial. I want the imperial structure to not be around. So that. As a native Hawaiian, in all seriousness, I don't want those systems to be around, because it's really bad for the planet. Even environmental activists will tell you the capitalist system. This cannot exist without destroying the environment and animals, plants, and ultimately humans, if it exists in a global sense for much longer. So we've got to get rid of these things. And finally, if you want to learn more about Hawaii. I just made a thread about dunking on Obama. Speaking of that, you can learn more about that here on the Silver Spook Guy social media accounts. Also, we work on the. Sorry, you can support us if you appreciate the education that we try our best to do, along with entertainment. You can help us out at the Silver Spook Cooperative by giving a direct donation to ko-fi.com/silverspook. Well, thanks again to McLovin for supporting us in this stream. If you do donate during the stream, I will try to shout you out. I don't use a super chat. You think of the Ko-Fi as like a replacement for the super chat. I will try to shout you out at least some point in the stream. If you do, I would check it. The reason why is there's a few reasons, but yeah, the best way to direct support us is through the ko-fi.com/silverspook, and the max revenue, more revenue comes straight to us, like 98.5% when you use the Ko-Fi. So please do that if you want to help us out to keep doing this work. Yeah, I see McLeod is in the chat. Thanks for helping us out. Also, don't forget you can help us out in an ongoing fashion at patreon.com/Neofeud. We did just lose like one of our biggest contributors that have to drop down to a lower level, and so that's been. We have a little bit less Patreon support, so we would, if we can get it back up to, I'm aiming for like at least if we can get to like 1,000, then we're not worrying about running out of electricity or running out of fuel for the car, because we need to use it to get to the store, and our basic needs. So if we can get this up to 1,000, that'll be really awesome. But anybody, if you can't support us in an ongoing fashion, at the Silver Spook Cooperative. It is massively appreciated. When you become a patron, you get access to updates like what we're working on with the when I'm doing panels. I recently did like a speaking about being an indie game developer panel at the Silver Spook at the We Are Indie Dev Day. I did an event. I'm gonna try to do another Indigenous game dev event. I want to do like another cyberpunk and adventure. Maybe I'll do like a cyberpunk and adventure game specific interview or podcast type event soon. But this is one I did with our friend Santo, who is another Indigenous futurist science fiction creator and game maker. And of course, working on Neofeud 2. Here's some screenshots. I was just working on the very ending of Neofeud 2. I'm literally finishing I'm hammering out the ending of Neofeud 2 as we speak. And this is like some of the animations that I've been working on like for most of my day, which is a lot of my day is like painting, Photoshop, backgrounds, making sprites, making animations like this. I mean, this is a whole lot of sprites and animations, obviously, for this scene. And then writing the script, programming it, and sometimes I do that on the Twitch stream live. You want to see me like live do game dev? I sometimes do that on the Twitch stream. This is some other Neofeud 2. Speaking of global hacking and global taking down imperial structures, this is a Silver Spook character from Terminus Machina who also shows up in Neofeud 2. And so if you want to, and also of course doing restoring our food and ecological systems in the land back, doing land back work here as in our Native Hawaiian run Silver Spook Cooperative under U.S. colonial occupation. And the dog is inspecting the sweet potatoes in this picture. And if you want to support all that, get access to the Silver Spook Discord, and also you can get access to the Silver Spook Silver Spook University, which is over 1,000 hours of all the content I have produced, categorized according to topics. A lot of it is on the YouTube channel, but this like kind of helps you sift through it. I know a lot of people like are worried about going to university because of costs, among other things, and so obviously I cannot give you we don't have an accredited university here, but we try to give the best education that we can manage given our circumstances and our ability to do this and production value we can manage. But if you want to help us out, it's basically just like you get access to like a taxonomized, categorized all YouTube videos plus the threads and just text material that we've put out. If people really get interested, if somebody's like, I will give you like a lot of Patreon money to just like build this out at some point, we can talk about that. Because I don't have time to invest a lot into fixing this thing up to be like even better than what it is. But it's part of it is like, I have to try to keep, we have to pay for our bills for me and Holly and the kids. So I got to worry about money, and so that's stopping me from investing time into this too much. But at the same time, if you do support us, you get at any Patreon level, you get access to the Silver Spook University, and of course, you also get access to the Discord and our behind the scenes work. Neofeud is a cyberpunk. I said a cyberpunk perspective. So, everything I do is a cyberpunk perspective. Everything I do is indigenous perspective and a cyberpunk perspective at the same time. But Neofeud is a cyberpunk game. That is a cyberpunk perspective, and it is also a retro adventure 90s style LucasArts point and click game with a cyborg social worker, a delinquent ex-con robot who he's supposed to be helping, and a ex-trillionaire ex-feudal princess in floating palaces above a endless slum sprawl with hippie terminators, unplugged matrix agents, homicidal Sega Genesis shaped electricity walls, and cigarette hacking. Did you ever wanted to hack your cigarette, and all kind of other hijinks and satire and comedy? That is if you were born in 1983, you will probably get a lot of what is going on in this, and if not, you probably will still get a lot. But Neofeud is a game that I spent 2.5 years making. You can, if you played it and you liked it, please leave even a very short review and help us get the game discovered in the Steam algorithm. You can also get Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and for Mac and for Linux on the itch.io website. You can also get Decolonators, Indigenous Star, several other games, Pigeon with Gun. And Woman is a book by Holly, who is raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity, and it is a critique of that through Mary's perspective within the Bible. And it's also free, or you can donate some money when you pick up this book. You can also follow at Silver Spook Games at wandering.shop, or at silverspoongames at mastodon.social, or both on Mastodon. You can follow Twitter on Twitter at silverspoonguy. On Twitter at silverspoonguy. For my personal takes, at silverspoongames minus Ian Silver. We also have, Blue Sky, Facebook. We're on all the sites. You can also follow Terminus C at Terminus Cyberstar, or at Terminus C to follow Terminus Cyberstar, a cyberpunk RPG I am the content director and the lead writer of. And of course, you can also follow Holly at Allergic to Blue. Holly is writer, producer, moderator, more, married to myself, parent of two, Lamback, Frio, White, MECFS haver, mask wearer. I know we have several people in here that, they got to be conscious of the pandemic. And so, yeah, we always support everybody in doing that, because that's very important for us to do. We always, when we're out masking, because it's still very high numbers. There's Mpox, there's H5N1. I just saw there's like more cases every day in California. And we got to be careful with that as well. And OPSEC. Anyways, thanks a lot to all of the people on this list for your ongoing Patreon patronage. Massively appreciate it. Without your support, it is hard for us to keep doing this work. So thank you so much. And yeah. Anyway, thanks, McLovin and Navok for stopping in, and everyone else who stopped in. Thank you so much. And don't forget to you can tune in later on in the evening when I come back on a Twitch stream. Until next time, keep Mercedes Plus, be excellent to each other. Treat your robots right. Don't really want underpaid slaves operating a machine that is inside my house that is controlled by unregulatable, horrible surveillance clowns like Elon. So maybe passing that. Might pass on that $30,000 piece of Cybertruck junk in humanoid form. And we will be